1. The murder of Sean Taylor. On November 26, 2007, one of the NFL's most feared safeties, Sean Taylor, was home in Miami recovering from a knee injury. It was supposed to be a quiet night with his girlfriend and their 18-month-old daughter, but a group of burglars, believing the house was empty, broke in. Sean had already endured a troubled start to his career. Fines, fights, even legal issues. But by 24, he had turned a corner. He was engaged. A new father, a team captain. His teammates said he had finally become the man he was meant to be. When Sean heard the noise, he did what any protector would. He grabbed a machete, but before he could reach the intruders, a gunshot ripped through the silence. The bullet struck his upper leg, severing his femoral artery. He collapsed in his bedroom. Sean was rushed into surgery, but the blood loss was too much. The next day, the NFL world woke up to the news. Sean Taylor had died. The league went into mourning. Players wore helmet decals in his honor. Washington left his position empty on their first defensive snap, and fans across the country lit candles in tribute. His death wasn't just tragic, it was haunting. A player with a once controversial past who had finally gotten it right, only to be killed trying to protect the people he loved. 2. The tragic death of Corey Stringer. Training camp is where legends are built. But in July of 2001, it became the site of one of the most devastating losses in NFL history. Minnesota Vikings offensive tackle Corey Stringer was entering his 6th season. He had just made the Pro Bowl and was known as both a gentle giant and a vocal locker room leader. On July 30th, players took the field for a full pads practice in brutal 90+ degree heat and crushing humidity. Corey showed signs of overheating early, vomiting between drills, leaning on teammates. But despite obvious signs of heat illness, he kept practicing. Coaches kept pushing. Trainers kept giving fluids. He refused to quit. After practice, Corey stumbled into the locker room and collapsed. His body temperature was 108 degrees. His organs were literally cooking from the inside out. He was rushed to the hospital and placed in intensive care, but the damage was irreversible. The next morning, Corey Stringer was dead. He was 27. The NFL community was stunned. Heat stroke? In 2001, a healthy elite athlete dead from something so preventable. His widow, Kelsey, filed a wrongful death lawsuit, and it changed everything. New protocols were introduced for heat monitoring, hydration, and trainer accountability. The NFL started investing in cooling technology and restricting full pads practices in extreme heat. Corey's death didn't just shake the league, it forced it to evolve. He died because no one knew better, and now they do. 3. Junior Seau's silent struggle. For 20 years, Junior Seau was the heart and soul of every team he played on. A 12-time Pro Bowler, NFL Man of the Year finalist, and future Hall of Famer. He was a lightning bolt on the field, and a smile in every locker room. But after retirement, something changed. Friends said he was restless, agitated. He would disappear for days, sleep in his car, or struggle with memory lapses. He opened a restaurant, he tried broadcasting, but nothing filled the void that football left behind. Then, in 2012, Seau shocked the world. He died by suicide in his Oceanside, California home. A self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest. No note, just heartbreak. The decision to shoot himself in the chest, and not the head. That was intentional. He wanted his brain to be studied. Doctors found severe CTE, a degenerative brain disease caused by years of repeated hits. His brain had deteriorated to a point comparable to that of an elderly dementia patient. Junior Seau's death wasn't just a loss. It was a warning. It changed the NFL's approach to concussions forever. Baseline testing, independent neurologists, concussion protocols, none of that existed the way it does now. Not until Seau was gone. In life, he was the ultimate competitor. In death, he became the face of football's darkest truth. 4. The death of Mike Webster. Mike Webster was the backbone of the Steelers dynasty. Nicknamed Iron Mike, he played 17 seasons, won 4 Super Bowls, and never missed a start for over a decade. But after retirement, the man who once anchored the NFL's toughest offensive line began to fall apart in silence. He couldn't sleep. He became paranoid. He would disappear for days and sometimes live out of his car. His once sharp memory vanished. He wrote rambling letters. He used a taser on himself to fall asleep. He was 50 but looked 70. In 2002, Mike Webster died of a heart attack, broken, but the real cause of death was invisible: CTE, a degenerative brain disease caused by years of hits to the head. His autopsy became the centerpiece of the NFL's concussion scandal. Dr. Bennett Omalu, who discovered CTE in Webster's brain, was ignored and ridiculed by the league. His research was the inspiration for the film Concussion, and it changed how football handles brain injuries forever. Mike Webster never wanted to be a martyr, but his pain forced the world to confront what the game had become. 5. The collapse of Chuck Hughes. October 24th, 1971. The Lions were trailing the Bears in the final minutes of the game when wide receiver Chuck Hughes caught a pass, ran his route, and jogged back to the huddle. Then, he dropped. At first, players thought he was cramping, maybe knocked the wind out of himself. But then, Bears linebacker Dick Butkus began waving frantically to the sideline, screaming for help. Chuck Hughes had suffered a massive heart attack right there on the field. Trainers rushed out. CPR was attempted, but in front of 54,000 fans at Tiger Stadium, Hughes was pronounced dead at age 28. His death left players visibly shaken. The game resumed after a delay, but something felt different. A man had died during an NFL game, and the world barely knew what to do. Chuck Hughes remains the only player in NFL history to die during a game. His legacy? A haunting reminder that under the helmets, these aren't superheroes, they're humans. 6. The sudden death of Joe Delaney. Joe Delaney was just 24 years old and coming off a Pro Bowl rookie season. His speed was electric, his work ethic unmatched. Off the field, he was soft-spoken. On it, he was fearless. On June 29, 1983, while visiting a park in Monroe, Louisiana, Joe saw 3 young boys screaming for help in a nearby pond. They were drowning. Joe couldn't swim, but that didn't stop him. He sprinted toward the water and jumped in. He managed to save one of the boys, but the other 2, and Joe, didn't make it out. When news broke, the NFL was stunned. Joe Delaney wasn't just a football player, he was a hero. The Chiefs retired his number. President Reagan posthumously awarded him the Presidential Citizens Medal. His teammates, and even his opponents, called him one of the most selfless athletes they'd ever met. Joe didn't die on the field, but he died as he lived, putting others before himself. 7th, Pat Tillman's final mission. In the early 2000s, Pat Tillman was living the dream, a starting safety for the Arizona Cardinals, multi-million-dollar contract, fan favorite. But after the September 11th attacks, he walked away from all of it. He turned down millions to join the US Army. He served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. No media, no press releases, just grit. But in April 2004, tragedy struck. During a mission in a mountainous region of Afghanistan, Tillman's unit was ambushed. In the confusion, friendly forces mistook his group for the enemy. He was shot and killed by his own side. The military tried to cover it up, claiming he was killed by enemy fire. They awarded him a Silver Star, wrote speeches, built a hero's narrative, but it was all a lie. When the truth emerged, it was even more heartbreaking. Pat had died doing what he believed in, and then he was betrayed by the very system he served. His story became one of sacrifice, truth, and the cost of idealism. He wasn't just an NFL player turned soldier. He was something much rarer, a man who lived and died by his principles. 8. The day Damar Hamlin collapsed. January 2nd, 2023. Millions were watching Monday Night Football in Bills vs. Bengals. Early in the first quarter, Damar Hamlin made a routine tackle, stood up, and then collapsed backward onto the turf. At first, it seemed like a normal injury timeout, but within seconds, the mood changed. Trainers and medics sprinted to the field. CPR began. Players formed a wall around him, many in tears. Some turned away, others dropped to their knees in prayer. Damar Hamlin had suffered cardiac arrest on the field. His heart had stopped. Ambulances arrived. The game was suspended. The world held its breath. Miraculously, after being resuscitated and hospitalized in critical condition, Damar pulled through. Weeks later, he walked, spoke, and eventually returned to the field. But for those 10 minutes, the NFL stopped, and everyone watching was reminded how fragile this game truly is. 9. The devastating injury of Ryan Shazier. December 4th, 2017. Monday Night Football, Steelers vs. Bengals. On a routine play, Steelers linebacker Ryan Shazier flew into the open field to make a tackle and instantly went limp. No movement, no attempt to get up. His legs didn't respond. Shazier had suffered a spinal contusion, a serious injury to the spinal cord. He was rushed into surgery and spent months in a wheelchair. At just 25 years old, his football career was over, but Shazier never gave up. He relearned to walk, he danced at his wedding, he became an advocate for spinal injury recovery, and when he walked out onto the field during the NFL draft months later, the entire league gave him a standing ovation. What should have ended in darkness became a story of hope, but it also served as a chilling reminder of how thin the line is between glory and tragedy in this sport. 10. Dennis Byrd, the tackle that changed everything. It was November 29th, 1992. The Jets were playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Defensive end, Dennis Byrd had his eyes locked on the quarterback. He burst off the edge, hungry for a sack, but what happened next would change his life forever. As Byrd closed in, Chiefs quarterback Dave Krieg stepped up in the pocket. Byrd's teammate, Scott Merzereau, also pursued the play, and in a freak moment, Byrd's helmet collided with Merzereau's chest at full speed. Byrd dropped to the ground. He wasn't moving. The stadium went silent, and he had fractured his C5 vertebrae and was instantly paralyzed from the neck down. He was 26 years old. Doctors told him he might never walk again. His football career was over, but Byrd refused to let the game define the rest of his life. With relentless rehab and unshakable spirit, he walked again within months. And just a year later, he walked into the Jets locker room to deliver a pre-game speech that left the team in tears. The Jets retired his number. His story inspired books, a movie, and countless players. Dennis Byrd didn't walk away from football. He crawled through tragedy and stood taller than anyone imagined possible. 11. Kevin Everett, one hit from never walking again. September 9th, 2007, opening day, Buffalo Bills tight end. Kevin Everett ran down the field to cover a kickoff. He lowered his shoulder for a textbook hit, but when the play ended, something was wrong. Everett didn't move, didn't blink. Paramedics swarmed. He had fractured his cervical spine, his neck. It was bad. Doctors feared not just paralysis, but death. What followed was nothing short of a miracle. Emergency surgery, ice-cold saline injections to slow swelling, intensive care. Just days after the injury, Everett shocked the world. He moved his toes. A month later, his legs. In a league known for brutality, Kevin Everett's story became one of hope. He never played again, but he walked again. And when he reappeared at a Bills game in a suit, standing under his own power, 70,000 fans rose to their feet. Football took his career, but not his life, and that was a win few expected. 12th, Bo Jackson, the greatest what-if in sports. Bo Jackson was mythic, a two-sport legend, the only athlete to be an all-star in both the NFL and MLB. His blend of speed and power was like something out of a video game. But on January 13th, 1991, in a playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals, everything changed. Bo took a handoff and burst down the sideline. A defender grabbed him from behind. It didn't look serious until Bo didn't get up. He had dislocated his hip, and in doing so, unknowingly cut off blood flow to the bone. Doctors tried everything, surgery, rehab, but it was too late. Bo Jackson developed a vascular necrosis. The bone was dying. He would never play football again. Just like that, the greatest athlete of a generation was robbed of his prime. To this day, fans still ask, what if Bo stayed healthy? Could he have been the best to ever do it? We'll never know, and maybe that's what makes the loss even harder to accept. 13. The friendship and loss of Brian Piccolo. In the late 1960s, the NFL, like America, was divided by race. Black players roomed with black players, white with white. But the Chicago Bears broke that unspoken rule when they paired Brian Piccolo, a white backup fullback, with Gale Sayers, the black superstar running back from Kansas. At first it was awkward, but what followed became one of the most famous friendships in NFL history. Brian Piccolo was funny, fearless, and full of life. He pushed Gale through injury rehab, cracked jokes at his expense, and earned his respect not with words, but work ethic. They became brothers. Then everything changed. In 1969, Piccolo began coughing during practices. He lost weight. At first, doctors thought it was pneumonia. Then they found the truth. Testicular cancer had spread to his lungs and liver. He fought hard. But in June 1970, at just 26 years old, Brian Piccolo passed away. At a banquet honoring Gale Sayers, he gave a speech that silenced the room and brought everyone to tears. I love Brian Piccolo, and I'd like all of you to love him too. That moment and that friendship became the foundation of Brian's Song, a film that's still considered one of the most emotional sports movies ever made. Piccolo didn't win a Super Bowl, he didn't make the Hall of Fame, but what he did, in life and in death, was bigger than football. 14. Rashaan Salam, The Silent Battle. Rashaan Salam was once unstoppable. In 1994, he won the Heisman Trophy after rushing for over 2,000 yards at Colorado. He was drafted in the first round by the Chicago Bears and showed immediate promise, rushing for over 1,000 yards his rookie season. But behind the scenes, things were unraveling. Injuries piled up, fumbles increased. He struggled with anxiety and chronic pain. Off the field, he battled depression and reportedly substance abuse. After just 4 years, his NFL career was over, but the pain didn't end there. On December 5th, 2016, Salam was found dead in a park in Boulder, Colorado. It was suicide. He was just 42. Friends said he had been hurting for years, alone, searching for peace. His death didn't make national headlines the way others did, but among former players, it struck a deep chord. Another fallen brother, another silent war lost, and another reminder that for some, the real battle begins after football ends. 15. The legacy of Gale Sayers and the body that betrayed him. Gale Sayers wasn't just a Hall of Famer. He was a human highlight reel. He could cut on a dime, sprint like a sprinter, and stop defenders dead in their tracks. But his brilliance burned fast. After just 5 seasons, injuries robbed Sayers of his speed. By 28, his career was over, but the pain didn't stop there. In his later years, Sayers battled dementia, symptoms of likely CTE. He became confused, withdrawn. His wife said he sometimes forgot names, places, even who she was. The man who once dazzled the world with his memory-defying moves slowly lost his own memory. He passed away in 2020 at the age of 77. His story isn't just about greatness, it's about what greatness can cost. He gave his body to the game, and in the end, it gave him nothing back. Which story hit you the hardest? Drop a comment, I'm reading them all. If you want more real stories from the game we love, subscribe. There's so much more to uncover. I'll see you in the next one.